Welcome back to English Speak Up Academy. I'm Alex, and I'm happy to be with you again.
I'm Emma. Today we're going to look at how to learn English faster and better.
We'll be talking about some common mistakes that can slow you down and some really cool strategies that can really help you learn more effectively.
We want to help you make learning English easier and more fun.
Let's start with the hard way traps. One big one is what we call the grammar overload trap.
Right. People spend so much time with textbooks and grammar rules, but then they freeze up when they try to actually speak.
Yeah, you try to memorize all the verb tenses and all the rules, and it just doesn't seem to work.
It's because that's not really how our brains learn languages.
It's not natural. Think about it. When you learned your first language, you didn't start with grammar rules.
You learn by listening and trying to communicate.
And that's how it should be with English, too.
Research shows that learning in context is much more effective.
So instead of trying to memorize the past tense of go, just learn a phrase like, yesterday, I went to the store.
Or last night, I watched a movie.
These phrases have the grammar built in, so you don't have to think about the rules.
Your brain starts to recognize the patterns naturally.
Another common trap is vocabulary lists.
Oh yeah, those lists can be a real pain.
You try to memorize all these words, but then you can't seem to use them in a real conversation.
It's like trying to build a house with just bricks and no mortar. You have the pieces, but you don't know how to put them together.
For example, you might know the word take, but not understand why people say take a break instead of have a break.
The word by itself doesn't tell you how to actually use it.
So instead of just memorizing take, learn phrases like, I need to take a break.
Or, let's take a look at this.
Or can you take care of this for me?
That way you learn the word and how to use it correctly in different situations.
The last hard way trap we'll talk about is avoiding mistakes.
So many learners are afraid to speak because they don't want to make mistakes.
They think they need to be perfect before they can open their mouths.
But that's like waiting to swim until you're an Olympic champion. You'd never get in the water.
You have to be willing to make mistakes. That's how you learn.
The more you speak, the more confident you'll become.
And the faster you'll progress.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Every mistake is a chance to learn and improve.
Start with simple phrases like, could you repeat that?
Or, I'm still learning, but I'll try.
Those are great phrases to use in any situation.
Now that we've talked about these hard way traps, let's move on to some smarter strategies.
We're going to share some strategies that will really make a difference in your English learning.
Our first strategy is learn phrases, not just words.
Right. We talked about how learning words by themselves can be confusing.
But phrases, they're like ready-made chunks of language that you can use right away.
They give you the context you need to understand the words.
So instead of just learning the word apple, you could learn, can I have an apple?
Or, this apple is sweet.
You learn the word and how to use it naturally.
Phrases are like building blocks for fluent sentences.
They make your speech smoother because you don't have to stop and think about every single word.
Exactly.
So next time you're at a cafe, try ordering a coffee with a phrase.
Like, I'd like a coffee, please.
It's a small change, but it can make a big difference in your confidence.
Our second strategy is grammar through stories, not rules.
Stories are a great way to learn grammar without even realizing it.
When you're listening to a story, you're not focused on the grammar rules,
You're just enjoying the story.
but your brain is still absorbing the grammar.
You're hearing how the language works in a natural way.
For example, if you listen to a story about someone's weekend, you'll hear a lot of past tense verbs.
Like walked, talked, and laughed.
You'll see how they fit into the sentences and how they tell the story.
There are lots of resources for story-based learning.
There are apps, podcasts, audiobooks, you name it.
You can even find stories on YouTube.
By paying attention to how grammar is used in stories, you can develop a better understanding of how it works.
And then you can start to use it correctly in your own speaking and writing.
It's a much more natural and enjoyable way to learn grammar.
Our third strategy is speak first, perfect later.
A lot of learners wait until they feel ready to speak.
But the truth is, you'll never feel completely ready.
There will always be more to learn.
So don't let that stop you from speaking.
The sooner you start speaking, the better.
If you make mistakes,
Actually, especially if you make mistakes.
that's how you learn.
Remember the swimming analogy.
You have to jump in the water to learn how to swim.
And you have to speak to learn how to speak English.
Use phrases like, could you repeat that? Or, I'm still learning, but I'll try.
Those are great phrases to have in your back pocket.
They show that you're engaged in the conversation and that you're willing to learn.
And if you forget a word, don't panic.
Just try to describe it using other words that you know.
Be creative.
Our fourth strategy is use dead time wisely.
We all have those little bits of time throughout the day where we're not really doing anything.
Like when you're commuting to work or waiting in line,
Use that time to learn English.
you can listen to podcasts
Watch Netflix with English subtitles.
or even just review some vocabulary words.
Even a few minutes here and there can add up over time.
One technique that I really like is called shadowing.
That's where you listen to someone speaking and then repeat what they say.
It's a great way to improve your pronunciation and fluency.
You can try shadowing with a TV show like Friends.
It's a fun and easy way to practice your speaking skills.
Now let's move on to some practical phrases that you can use in real-life situations.
We'll cover 3 common situations: at a restaurant, making small talk, and asking for help. Okay, so first, let's talk about some phrases you can use at a restaurant.
It's a great place to practice your English.
Sure.
You can start by asking for recommendations.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like, what do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a good way to get the server talking and maybe learn about some new dishes.
And when you're ready to pay, you can say, could I get the bill, please?
Simple and polite.
Now let's move on to making small talk.
This can be a bit tricky sometimes, I know.
It can be, but it's an important skill to have.
Definitely.
You can start a conversation by asking about the other person's interests.
Like what?
You could say, what's your favorite way to relax? Or, have you seen any good movies lately?
Those are good ones. They get the conversation going.
And they give the other person a chance to talk about themselves.
Okay, now let's talk about asking for help.
This is when it's really important to be clear.
Absolutely.
If you don't understand something, just ask for clarification.
Like how?
You could say, can you explain that differently? Or, I didn't catch that. Can you slow down?
Those are good phrases to use.
They show that you're trying to understand.
Maybe we could do a little role play to practice these phrases.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay, let's say I'm a local and you're a tourist asking for directions.
Got it.
Excuse me. How do I get to the train station?
Go straight and then turn left at the cafe.
Okay, thank you. Could you repeat that last part?
Turn left at the cafe.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
See? Even basic phrases can help you get around in a new place.
All right, now let's wrap things up with some tools and habits for effortless learning.
I love that effortless learning.
Who doesn't?
We all want to make it as easy as possible.
And technology can be a big help.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There are tons of language learning apps out there. You can also use AI chat apps to practice conversations.
Oh, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that.
And you can even use voice assistants like Siri or Alexa to work on your pronunciation.
I like that.
Try setting a timer using your voice assistant.
Like Google set a timer for 10 minutes.
Exactly.
It's a good way to get comfortable using English in a practical way.
Aside from technology, I also recommend developing a simple daily writing habit.
Like what kind of writing?
Just write a few sentences about your day.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Right. Just a quick recap of what you did.
Like I eat pizza? It was delicious. Tomorrow I'll study.
Perfect.
And most importantly, don't forget to celebrate your successes.
Yes, a positive mindset is crucial.
Learning a new language takes time and effort, so it's important to acknowledge your progress.
The win jar is a good way to do that.
Every time you use English successfully in a real situation, write it down and put it in the jar.
It's a great visual reminder of how far you've come.
It can really help to keep you motivated.
You know, I remember one time I was traveling and I wanted to order something, but I couldn't remember the word for it.
Oh, what did you do?
I just used other words to describe it.
That's a good strategy.
You have to be creative sometimes.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of great tips today.
I hope this has been helpful for our listeners.
Remember, there's no one right way to learn English.
The most important thing is to find what works for you and make it fun.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
That's how you learn and grow.
Thanks for joining us today on English Speak Up Academy.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends.
And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.
Until next time, keep practicing. And remember, progress, not perfection.